Publishing and co-editor for this story. I am so excited to be introducing the book today along with our authors, my co-editor Drew Edwards, and 6 of the Sheroes that are highlighted for the amazing work that they're doing. In addition to our very special Sheroes, we also have some questions from Miss Kavanaugh's elementary school class from Sterling Heights, Michigan. They got a special preview of the book and have prepared for us a few questions after the reading. Just a little bit of background before we introduce our collaborators and get to the reading. This book is a continuation of the Pangea Publishing Learning Series that we launched back in April. We set out to create a story that would help families navigate what is happening around the world and how we can all handle the uncertainty and the fear that has been swirling around the coronavirus. The Unwelcome Stranger is that book, and it started that conversation. But what we very quickly realized is that it was just the start. There is so much more to say. Sheroes of COVID brings hope into the discussion. It highlights the power of women during this time, something that feels just a little bit more relevant with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg last Friday. Justice Ginsburg was a champion of women's rights and an inspiration to millions. She did not back down from a challenge and encouraged that neither should we, even when times can feel bleak. This book acknowledges that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, to feel angry and confused about everything that's happening. For most of us, adults too, we've never experienced anything like this. But we can also take action. We can be a light for our families, for our communities, for our countries. People, and especially women, who make up over 70% of the frontline workforce, have risen to this challenge, and we are so thrilled to be highlighting just a few of the amazing stories that are happening around the world right now. I want to introduce you to the authors of the book, as well as my co-editor, before I let each of them tell you why they felt so compelled to get involved in this project. First, we have Priya Shah, who's the founder of The Simple Good, an organization that strives to build connection around the meaning of good and to empower young people through social, emotional learning and mindfulness-based youth art residency programs. Priya was selected as an Ariane de Rothschild Legacy Fellow focused on cross-cultural leadership and innovative entrepreneurship from the University of Cambridge. She's an Obama Foundation strategist and was nominated for Forbes 30 Under 30. She brings her insights as an artist, entrepreneur, and powerful female voice to be one of our co-authors. And Priya is joined by Rema Kasule, Legacy Fellow focused on cross-cultural leadership. Rema is a gender and youth development expert and an international award winner. She is currently a senior fellow at the Harvard Advanced Leadership Initiative, a Let Girls Learn Global Ambassador, and the founder of CETA International. Rema strongly believes that education breaks intergenerational cycles of poverty, and she is committed to providing opportunities to change life trajectories one girl at a time. These 2 amazing women, together with Drew Edwards, were the backbone of this project. Drew is the co-founder and current CEO of Pangea. He's a social entrepreneur who has spent his career working in education with children in post-conflict and crisis settings and has written for UNESCO, spoken at NPR, and on stage at South by Southwest Education. His passion is promoting literacy and how children learn to see themselves and others through books. I would love for each of them to take just a few minutes to tell you why the Sheroes Project was so important to them. And Drew, I'm going to start with you.
Well, thanks for having us on. And we are so excited to present this book. We've been working really hard on it for a very long time. Pangea's mission is to empower communities to fulfill their own purpose and potential by fostering cultures of literacy. A lot of fostering a culture of literacy starts with what we're reading, and what we're reading needs to be relevant to us, but it also needs to be representative to us and to so many people around the world, and that's often not the case. We were so excited to launch this book because, as Amy mentioned, 70% of frontline and essential workers are women. Women are leading us through this crisis, all the way from the heads of government, some of whom we have on today, down to what's happening around your own block and in your own neighborhood. So we're just thankful to be a part in publishing and bringing this book out, and we're so thankful for everyone who has contributed with us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Drew. Rema.
Hi, thank you, Amy, and thank you to our Sheroes. For me, today is a moment to hold, a moment to celebrate. For me, for two reasons. One, as a young girl growing up in my village, I never had books. And it's only at 16 years when I got a book called Woman of Substance by Barbara Taylor Bradford that my imagination grew so big that I dreamt beyond my village where I was born. I proudly say I was born a village girl, but I refused to become a village woman. But I only did that because I had the power of reading. And for any child out there in the world, just know that your background doesn't shape your destiny. You have the power to dream big and get to the destiny you want. And it starts from reading, because readers are leaders. So if you want to lead, you need to read. And to the women, the Sheroes, that's what we are passionate about at CEDA International. We inspire, mentor, and connect women leaders from around the world to dream big, do businesses, lead in public offices, and become entrepreneurs. And that work has impacted over 130,000 people around the world. And we are so proud of being part of this book. This book, Sheroes, has just a few stories of the women, but we have more stories of women from around the world, women like Patricia from Malawi, a policewoman who has decided to use her power to support and protect women from domestic violence. So for me, today is just a journey. And like Eleanor Roosevelt said, if you dream, you achieve, and no dream is too big. And the future belongs to those that believe in the power of their dreams. We have the power to change narratives. We have the power to improve gender, not to just speak about it, but to do it. And to do that, we need collective action. We need collective voices. And you, our Sheroes, are part of it. Because you know, if you walk alone, you go fast. You work with others, we go far. So we are going to go far with this project. It's not just a project, this is a movement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rema. And now, Priya, please tell us a little bit more about why it was so important for you to get involved in this project.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to all our amazing Sheroes that are here today and everybody that's joined us. My name is Priya Shah, and I'm the founder and executive director of The Simple Good. Our mission is to connect the meaning of good from around the world to empower our youth to become positive activists through art and discussion. So like Amy said, we provide mindfulness and social emotional learning based arts programming, all centered around having students find their meaning of good to really use that to change the world. And that's really what this story is about, how our amazing Sheroes have used their definition of their meaning of the simple good to really create an impact in our communities in order to inspire our youth to do the same. And so with that being said, I'm really excited to share these amazing stories so that all of us can take away our understanding of good in our lives through the inspiration of these examples, of these beautiful stories, so that we can collectively make an impact during this time of crisis. So it is my pleasure to read for you our book titled Sheroes of COVID-19, Women Leading the Crisis, co-authored by Rema Kosule and myself, Priya Shah, and published by Pangea Publishing. The foreword was written by Ambassador Melanie Vervier, the Executive Director of Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security. So with that being said, Rema, I'll let you take it over. Rema, you're on mute right now.
So the COVID-19 or the coronavirus pandemic began in December of 2019. But the virus quickly spread from country to country, causing danger and spreading fear around the world. People around the world are rising to the challenge. Globally, women make up to 70% of the frontline workers, from health workers to social workers, to CEOs, to government leaders, to teachers, to mothers. Women are sparking acts of good, both big and small, making a difference. These are our heroes of COVID-19.
So much has changed since the arrival of the unwelcome stranger. My cousin Kato has come to stay. His parents work at the hospital. I love spending time with him, but I miss my school friends. I do not know when things will be normal again. Faith, my dear, what is bothering you? We've been at home for so long. I want to know what is going on out there. You're not alone. At moments like this, I especially miss your grandmother. One thing that I learned from her is how important it is to always be looking for the good around us. So go get your sisters and your cousin. I want to show you something. In these uncertain times, we have only seen the inside of our home. However, much good is happening all around the world. Knowing that helps positive, even during scary times. When I see something good, I save it for moments like these. I want to share with you some brave stories from this crisis. Many of them are of women like you, Faith. For me, opening this box is like turning on a light. Let's look together. Many people have become sick with the virus since the outbreak began. Healthcare workers have done extraordinary things to protect and treat people who are sick, grandfather said.
Wow. When an ambulance did come, Nurse Doris Okodinia in Uganda pushed a patient 5 kilometers in a wheelchair from her clinic to a hospital. She must have been very tired, but she kept going. That reminds me of Miss Natalia's job. She's a midwife who is always willing to help the many women in our village give birth to healthy babies, I said. That's right. All healthcare workers have shown bravery and strength. Miss Natalia has been working without a break for months since the crisis started. Look, this woman is working to stop the virus, my sister Zia said. She's using science to prevent more people from getting sick. Yes, there are teams of viruses around the world working to develop a vaccine to help stop the virus of COVID-19. Doctors, nurses, and hospital staff have been heroic in how they are saving others. In China, Li Lingyang is a nurse who volunteered to travel to Wuhan, where the outbreak started, to treat people. She and her team performed more than 34 difficult surgeries. I feel bad. Doctors are in danger, and I was just feeling so sad because I couldn't go outside. Grandfather put his arms around me. Our day-to-day activities are different, and that can make us sad and angry. It's okay to feel this way. Zia held up a clipping. Lots of people are feeling that way too. Faith. In Chicago, Naima Thomas is an art therapist who uses art to help kids with emotions. Her work supports positive mental health during the pandemic. That's health that's not just in your body, but in your thoughts and feelings too.
This woman, Kat Keeley from the United Kingdom, launched an online service for healthcare workers to request personal protective equipment, PPE, such as masks and goggles. They need these things to stay safe while treating patients. What happens to kids who don't have families nearby, but their parents are healthcare workers? Gato asked. It can be very hard. A medical student, Sarah Letterman, who was just 22 years old, created a babysitting and errand service to help those families. Artists and musicians step up to inspire us in moments of fear and despair. Amanda Garman is only 22 years old, but her poetry has inspired people around the world to find the light in the darkness of this time. There are many ways we can keep our mental health strong. Looking for positive stories together is one. Learning is another. But right now, 9 out of 10 children around the world are at home and out of school. That makes learning harder. Not impossible. Sajida Shraf in the United Arab Emirates has created a homeschool curriculum for children to learn to read at home with what they have around them. In Ecuador, the Minister of Education, Montserrat Kramer, has focused learning on emotional well-being and life skills. Students do reading and activities at home and related to daily life and keep them in a portfolio for when they can return to school. So that was a short preview of our book, and now I'm going to give it to Amy to introduce our Shero.
Thank you so much. For everyone, the remainder of the book is available digitally for free online. We want to make sure that we give our Sheroes enough time to really hear their stories, and so I'm going to ask that all of them turn back on your videos, and we will get started. Thank you so much again, Rema and Priya. And now I am so excited to introduce Montserrat Kramer, the Minister of Education in Ecuador, Somia Agarwal, Elsa Marie de Silva, Cristel Quizera, Katz Keeley, and Sajida Sharaf. Each of these incredible women will introduce themselves, where they're from, and their work. We heard a little bit about their stories in the reading, but they're going to tell you more about what it is that they're doing, and importantly, what inspired them to take action during this unique time in history. Minister Kramer, we'll start with you. Your work has been so innovative in helping children learn during this difficult time. Please tell us more about the program you've been championing, its impact, and your inspiration.
Hello, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share our experience in Ecuador, in South America. We have 4.5 million of children belonging to many different ethnic groups. One day, suddenly, schools were closed because COVID-19 arrived, and all these children and their families were very afraid. So, as Minister of Education, I felt deep pain and desire to provide support and love to those children and young people with fear in their eyes and paralyzed by the unknown enemy. There was no time to resist the new scenario. So we said yes to education. And we decided that we will live one day at a time, but thinking ahead. And we also remember Einstein, who said, we can't pretend to change if we keep doing the same. Therefore, the first great objective was that each home would have the accompaniment of a teacher to offer emotional support and guidance related to the crisis, and special support for students at risk of dropping out. In my country, Ecuador, only 25 out of every 100 children have a computer and connectivity. So, and therefore, the message is not just about connecting to a computer, it's connecting with loved ones, and together we will overcome the crisis. The educational plan is called We Learn Together Home and has an emphasis on emotional stability and in life skills like communication, empathy, and cooperation. These skills are related to essential learning goals with an interdisciplinary vision. Students do activities at home related to daily life and keep them in portfolio for when they return to school. And our desire is to prepare our students to live with solidarity in new and changing realities. Thank you.
I love it. It is so challenging. We don't always think about how being in rural communities or having everyone so separate can make learning so challenging. And COVID has really forced us to rethink quite a bit about that. Thank you so much for sharing, Montserrat. Soumya, your story is still a mystery to our readers. We wanted to make sure we had enough time to hear from all of you. Can you please share with us a little bit more about your work and your inspiration?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Youth for Peace International. When the pandemic started, we were already facing a crisis, but unfortunately, a lot of hate speech started within the communities, and in India, it took a religious tone. And seeing our friends, seeing other communities being trolled, being blamed for something that they have not committed for, or they were suffering from violence, they are suffering from not getting equal treatment, really made me feel, what should we do now? We already have a crisis. We cannot have other issues. So with this whole thought, how we can connect over commonalities, how we can bring communities together with a challenge that we cannot go out, we cannot mobilize people. We created a very small game. It's called A Small Act of Peace Bingo. And I'm sure we all have played that game. But we had a different touch to it, where we can reflect on our stereotypes, where we can reflect what we can do from home, where we can reflect how we can bring communities together, and how we can ensure our mental well-being. So with this, we created that game, and that's the story which has been covered in the book as well. So I would also like to invite you to play that bingo. It's available online. Thank you.
Soumya, it's so powerful. I think these tools, whether they're books or games, what starts conversation increases understanding, and sometimes it's things that you might think of as very simple, like bingo, that can be so changing in how people think about others and themselves. So I thank you so much for your work, and thank you for being with us today all the way from India. Christelle, your work focuses on essential needs, and you are joining us all the way from Rwanda. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work you're doing there and the impact that it's been able to have?
Thank you, Emmy. So I founded my company 6 years ago, and it was always about providing clean access to water and creating employment for young people. And that's what we were doing, and we had a lot of plans for 2020, and we started the year. We ordered materials, new machinery, pumps, filters, and then COVID happened, and everything was stuck at sea for a month. We're actually right now, we're now in September, and we're still now starting to receive some of our shipments. So it slowed us down, but more than ever, access to clean water was super necessary for the rural areas. So we started, checking in with our customers, and you find that some of them who are already connected on our water mini grids are not able to afford the water because they're not gaining their income anymore. And that's when we come in boldly as a social enterprise, and we provided some basic water for free to our customers. And actually, it didn't affect the bottom line at the end. We were still able to keep operations going as a company, but also making sure that nobody runs out of clean water to hand wash. The other thing we did is we massively reached out to all our partners and really pleaded with everybody, help us connect as many people as possible with piped access to water in their homes. As you know, in many rural areas in Africa, people still walk outside of their homes to public water points, which are crowded, the lines are terrible, and actually at the beginning of the crisis, we saw the lines getting longer and longer and longer because people needed more water for hand washing, and our supply was just the same. We had the same taps at the public water points, but we have the ability to connect people at home. And we were, first of all, a little bit stuck because a lot of our shipments were not available, but we also didn't have enough financing. But seeing the crisis knock on our doors made us bolder to ask and push harder with our team, we moved from connecting 2 or 3 households per day to 6 per technician per day. So each technician, we deploy technicians on the field, and they were connecting each 6 people per day from, a company average of around 3 per day. So that really inspired action and speed with us. We knew we had challenges, but we didn't stop as a team to listen to the challenges, but we pushed through, and partners came through, and we were able as soon as lockdown was over, we connected over 160 people within the space of 2 weeks, moving really fast and trying to connect as many people as possible. We're still doing that because, again, hand washing, social distancing is the way to fight this crisis. And many rural people in rural areas cannot do that because of access to basic services like water. So we keep on fighting. It's our life mission as a company, but also with the COVID crisis, we feel a renewed energy, a renewed urgency to act, which we have been using as a company to keep pushing.
Christelle, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I did not realize you'd started your company 6 years ago, and you are already one of our youngest Sheroes. We have a lot of young women listening. Can you do you have anything to share with them about overcoming or any hesitation about being a young female leader, and what what that means to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I founded my company when I was 20, and I've always been a daring person. I have a lot of self-doubt, but when you meet me in public, you'll never tell because I'm a debater. So I try to understand something, and I was always empowered as a child to believe in myself and what I was doing. And I hope girls, young women, as they read this, they also realize, look, you can have that self-doubt, but be empowered in your ideas. Even if you have questions, feel free to ask. So when I founded my company, it was actually quite a step for me because I had to stand in front of big organizations. I was working with the Ministry of Infrastructure in my country. I had to sign a contract with the minister. I had to work with UNICEF, with Rotary Foundation. And my first project was actually not successful. But the reason it was not successful was I was following an old model. So everybody was recommending this model, and I had to find the courage after 3 months of hard work to be like, look, I did not succeed. But saying that meant to also tell these people, these big organizations, we tend to think know exactly what they're doing, and be like, no, I actually think I have a better solution. So that's when I founded the company. It was on such a step. And it was not easy. It was not an easy decision. But my education, my role models, my mentors encouraged me through that process. And now, I mean, the impact we're reaching is a testimony of why that was such an important step. And there's been a turnaround in the water sector to see that, okay, some of the solutions we're giving to rural areas are not sustainable. Women in Africa should not be reserved to use hand pumps only. Why not access to tap water in their homes like we enjoy in urban areas? So when we started saying that, everybody was like, your project will never be successful. We'll never raise enough money to do that. It is hard, but we're doing it. And we're barely scratching the surface for how many people we need to reach, but we keep pushing. And our team has grown. We're now 61 people, and that's why these days it's no longer me, really. Like, there's 61 awesome people out there pushing these goals, pushing this vision. And when I think about it, it started with the fact that I was willing to believe in myself, believe in this idea, and be like, look, I may be just 20 years old, but I strongly believe we need a different solution in the water sector. And I'm gonna fight and implement this. And we're here now, and we have so much more to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I saw a lot of heads shaking from the other ladies, and I just wonder how many of you, by show of hands, were told that whatever idea it was that you were about to start was crazy, and maybe that you shouldn't try it. I sort of suspected that every one of us has been told, whether it's you're too young or this hasn't been done before. And for those listening, and especially, at every age, you are always going to have folks who are, pushing back and opposing change. And a lot of times female leadership is change. So I'm going to keep us moving. Katz, you are joining us from the United Kingdom. You have such a diverse and interesting background. You're an entrepreneur and a digital expert. You've also done work with the UN. We are highlighting your work and your COVID efforts around PPE and innovative delivery. Can you tell us a little bit more about that program and what's inspired you?
So, first of all, can I just say how completely humbled I am to be here amongst this group of people? I think this book is absolutely beautiful. So, my career has been about using digital to connect people so they can be more than the sum of the parts. So my entire shtick is about open innovation, open data. I do big cultural transformation for big companies. One of the things I'm most proud of, I guess, apart from Frontline, is at one point when I was working for the UN, we managed to use digital platforms to connect 6,500 world leaders in Geneva with 60 young innovators, but the pièce de résistance, with 10,000 kids in schools across the world, live. And when you bring kids, young people into the conversation, they say the most beautiful things that people never dare say. So now I run a company and I carry on doing what I'm doing. It's a software company. But then when this lockdown first started happening, I was scared and disconnected and powerless, like everybody else was. And I was sat talking to a friend of mine on Zoom, of course, and she's a nurse. And I couldn't get a shopping delivery sent to me. So I was going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go to the shops. She said, I'm going to go to work in a hospital tomorrow. And I know I'm probably going to be dealing with people who are infected. We don't have any masks. That's crazy in the 21st century that somebody should not feel safe at work. So then, of course, being a social media addict, I start seeing doctors and nurses and care workers all over the country who were saying they didn't have protective equipment either. On the other side, there were all of these kind of small companies, brew dogs and barbers and the Burberrys, who were making, suddenly they found the way of pivoting to start making this PPE. And then there were entrepreneurs like me who cared and really wanted to make a difference. So they were raising money to be able to give away PPE. But they didn't know where the need was. So we had clear need, I'm going into work being scared, clear supply, but there's no way they could find each other. So being a digital nut, I thought, well, there's something we can do about this. So I decided to start convening partners. And we've had so many amazing partners who've jumped forward to work for absolutely nothing. And over 40 volunteers who are extraordinary experts who are given their time for free. And it took 5 weeks until we built the platform, Frontline.live, which is the first ever national digital map of real-time needs from the front line. So basically the doctors and the nurses and the care workers at whatever level can either tweet in with #FrontlineMap, or if they're too scared to speak out, they can tell us anonymously on a form on Frontline.live. And so over those 3 months of crisis, we had 120 suppliers sign up, over 1,500 PPE requests. 40% of the people who asked for requests got their needs answered, some of them within 24 hours. We've partnered with one of the biggest unions, United Health in the UK, who've got 100,000 healthcare workers so that we can get the word out to people. And, Microsoft, Snapchat, the Times, all of these people just said, we want to help. Whatever we can do to make this happen, we'll jump in to make it happen. And so for me, all this is proven is if you can see something and you know that something needs to be solved, sit forward and do it, because people will sit forward. And the other thing is, if you can see a problem, don't be scared of it. Don't sweep it under the carpet and pretend it's not happening. Bring it out, because people will sit forward and find ways of solving that.
I love it. It's such a powerful message that I think we all get a little bit intimidated and scared for, as Christelle said, we are filled with self-doubt and we feel like we're alone in this. It's such an isolating time, but there are so many people willing to help and so many people who are willing to think differently in this time, I think that your work with Frontline is proof that creativity and innovation comes in so many forms to solve some of these unique problems that we're seeing. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here today.
The offer, it's just beautiful. I love what you're doing. It's so important.
Sajida, your work is so close to our hearts here at Pangea, focused on making education accessible. Can you tell us more?
Thank you. So first I want to echo, I think, what Kat said, and just say I thank you so much for including me. I'm so honored to be a Shihiro and truly inspired by all of you, but also by just everybody that's stepped up in this time, in this unique time. I think for us, Altamont Group is the company that I run. I started it just like you, Christelle, 6 years ago. We're an education investment and advisory firm focused on enabling access to quality education and programs across the emerging economies. So our work has always been impact focused and beneficiary driven. With COVID, what we saw was that the greatest challenge was the incredible confusion, okay? There was misinformation and there was so much fear about what was to come. There was such unknown, but it was being looked at with real fear. So when we looked at the education sector, which is, the sector that we're super passionate about, there was even more fears as families, schools, and governments were trying to figure out solutions to these really immediate challenges. And in some ways, they seemed insurmountable. So given my lifelong focus on access, quality, and impact, it was super obvious that I needed to find ways to dispel the rumors, the fears, and the challenges within the education ecosystem. So with my team, I have an amazing team, primarily all women as well. We developed several initiatives to support families and devise strategies also to support governments and interventions to provide access and equity within the new COVID education ecosystem. So our innovations were looking at both from the government, so from the macro perspective, but also from the micro, so from the user beneficiary perspective. And we did the homeschooling curriculum. We looked at teacher and facilitator training and upskilling. As everybody had to digitize and go online, teachers didn't really know how to cope. Curriculums definitely needed help in being able to transition. We also looked at the whole issue of, what's going to happen to the kids who are seniors in high school or starting university? What's going to be their future like? So, we did a whole bunch of webinars for them with really detailed information. So spending a lot of time speaking to those in the know to gather that information. And then, of course, sharing resources in any way, shape, or form that we could to support the families. Our focus remained on enabling access to quality programming, providing support to families as they navigate this really strange new normal, and enabling governments to realign strategies and reallocate resources as they plan also for this new future of education. So we've been really lucky in that we've been able to do grassroots support as well as enable agile government interventions. In terms of students reached, we have approximate numbers, but basically what we've heard is that we've reached approximately 1,700 students across geographies that included the GCC, South Asia, Africa, and North America and Europe. The most important thing we also wanted to emphasize to everybody is that we're really in this together. And we did a quick count in preparation for today, because we haven't really been keeping track. We've just been making sure the information is freely available. And we've heard as of today that we've impacted over 5,000 families in the work that we've done. But the thing for me, I think there's two things that I've learned, and it's been very critical to put out there. One is that we truly are in this together. Like, all of us are facing the same challenges. We're facing, we all have similar fears wherever we are in the world, whatever our context. And so, we can find solutions together. And that's the other thing that I've seen. And I think it's super unique in this time. And I hope that we continue. In the past, we have been hesitant to share, what we know, our resources with each other. The silver lining of this pandemic is that we're now open to sharing and learning from each other. And I truly hope and pray that that continues. Thank you.
Saja, such a good message. I think this idea of connection, and as we were working on this book and learning all of these different stories and seeing the power that comes with that, I think it's very, very well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We now have a few additional questions for our authors and our Sheroes. Our first question comes from Mina. who asked if any of you have ever been scared to keep doing the work that you're doing. Montserrat, I see you shaking your head yes.
Yes, I was completely paralyzed, exactly like all the children in the country. And it was a great responsibility to be responsible of the education and the change of a scenario suddenly in 24 hours for the whole country. So of course that I was completely with fear, but then I started thinking that this is the opportunity to change. And like as I said, we can't resist it. We just need to go further.
Any others would like to share their experience? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly say that every time I've tried to do something new and innovative, I'm terrified. But then what I've learned is it really doesn't matter, because what's the worst that can happen? It can go wrong. But that in itself is learning. And so for me, failure and success are the same thing. And as soon as you recognize that, what's the worst that can happen? It's going to go wrong, and I'll learn and I'll be richer. You're in a good place.
Yes, Sajida.
So my grandmother, who is a woman who inspires me every day, she passed away many years ago, was never educated. But the one thing that she taught me is that, you know, don't be afraid to fail, because every time you fail, you will learn something new. And from that, the next thing will be better. So in our household, we say failure is the first step to success. I know many people know that saying, but we say it a lot in our house. So when the pandemic started, you know, all of a sudden, I travel constantly for my work, for my business. And just as an example, between November and February, I was in 13 countries, okay? From March to now, I've been in one country, the UAE. That's where I am, not gone anywhere. So when the pandemic hit and, you know, all of a sudden travel was stopped and everything was, it felt like it was at a standstill. I was scared. I was petrified. I was like, how am I going to do what I'm supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to help, you know, the people that I help? How am I supposed to make the programs happen that I happen when I'm stuck behind a desk? Where there's a will, there's a way. We tried, we figured out solutions, we found ways to get into homes in a way that was helpful for them, that enabled access, that made sure that families were supported, that, you know, the kids were getting educated. But, you know, it wasn't easy. It definitely, we had to change the way we think about things. We had to change the way we do things. We had to change this need to have this personal touch, but the personal touch in a different way. So definitely lots of fears and concerns, but, you know, in the end, a new normal that will hopefully be, you know, continue to be beneficial for those that need it the most.
Yeah, but I think this idea that we aren't going to go back to the way things were, but what is ahead of us can hopefully be changed in a better way, because we've learned to connect and work differently, because we've taken on some new innovative solutions in how we go forward. Our next question is from Giovanni. I like that there was a Shero who shared knowledge with people who did not have access to phones or internet. That is very, very hard for me to imagine. How do you come up with new ways of reaching people and new ways of solving problems?
Could
oh, go ahead, please.
Short?
Yes.
For example, in my case, Ecuador, like I said, we have just 25 out of every 100 of students. So we tried with TV, radio, printed guides in 12 language for indigenous people, and the personal contact. Doesn't matter if in horse, bicycle, in the river, just to take and have contact with the students. And that was very, very a strong experience and very human experience.
I think it's been so interesting, this, and Katz, I'm going to go to you next. I feel like from the analog kind of going back, you know, to the technology side of, we have to be thinking across the spectrum in a time like this of all the different ways to reach people and stay connected. And Katz, from a technology perspective, and
this is to Giovanni about how you come up with ideas. It was Einstein that said, You should spend 90% of your time really understanding the problem, and then the solution is the easy bit. So it's stepping back and really trying to understand what's going on here. And then the kind of the technology idea is the easy bit.
It's an important reminder. I think a lot of times we all get very, very excited to come up with big, flashy, fun ideas and things. And sometimes it's really getting to know the people experiencing the problem and the problem itself. That's wonderful. And I want to say thank you to all of our Sheroes. I'm just taking a look at our time. I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to pop up our chat. We've had a couple of folks share in our chat. I think and I'm pulling up the chat, and I have to tell you, they're all just things about how wonderful and inspiring you all are, which I think is really, really amazing. I'm going to throw it over to both Rema and Priya to share what is it that you're hoping that folks take away from this book and from this launch event.
I can start. For me, is the fact that when women lead, change happens. So that's number one. As women, we don't have to say gender is not an event. It's not a marathon so that we get to the front line. This is a process we need to take, and we really need to take it with caution, but also bring the men along with us. Because unless we bring the men along with us, we won't win this battle. So really, for me, what we need us to do is to amplify more voices of women so that we create more role models for their children, for them to see themselves in that picture, and for them to know that someone has done it, I too can do it. Because when you dream a dream which has been dreamt before, you dream it better. That's number one. Secondly, and most importantly for the women, it's about collective action. We need to stop working in silos. We need to work together because we are stronger together. When you see a woman, lift her up. Don't go alone, get another woman, and before we know it, we shall transform this movement. And I call it a movement because we need to create a movement of women leaders around the world.
I love it. Thank you so much, Rema. Priya.
I echo everything that Rema said, and I really do hope that through these stories we do see the power of women at a young age and our power of young girls in order to create another iteration of how powerful we all can be. And just like Rema said, it really is our collective power and our ability to collaborate and come together that allows us to make even more of an impactful change for the future and allows us to amplify our missions even more so than it already has. So I hope that young children and young girls are able to read all of your stories and identify with all of you. We have such a beautifully diverse group of women and can see themselves in you in order to create that impact starting very young and at a very young age. So that's our hope. And just like Rema said, this is about women, but this is also about men knowing how to support women so we can be the best that we want to be. So thank you all for creating this space for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our Sheroes, to Ms. Kavanaugh and their class for your great questions. As a reminder, and I think it's a theme of the book, and it's something we've heard a couple of times just this morning, is that every single day we have the option to let the negative bring us down. We can look for those stories that deflate our spirits, and right now it can feel like there are a lot of stories like that, or we can look for the light, for those women and men who are bringing good to their communities, because there is always going to be both, and we get to choose every day. And I just want to thank everyone who is on the call right now, who joined us today, for choosing positivity. And I hope that you will continue to help us spread that positivity along with the important messages and stories of this book. The power of these women's stories is so great, and we ask that you continue to share them on social media, to share them with your friends, with your families. You can purchase the book on Amazon or Kindle, or consider making a donation to the organizations that are making it possible for this book to be available digitally for free. I think in the link of this chat, and it will be available on all of our social media pages to go and access the book for free. The world really needs these stories. They need to hear and they need to understand that we are stronger together. And so I just want to say thank you so much for your time. On behalf of Pangea and our partner organizations, please stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you so much. Take care.